Welcome to Pastor's Corner. I am Pastor Kelly Milne. I am from the Bridgewater New Church in Bridgewater Center, and with me is my cohort, Reverend Dr. Donna from the Elmwood New Church in East Bridgewater, or Elmwood. And gosh, we have done quite a few of these Pastor Corners, and we finally are going to talk about something today.
Yes, it's quite funny, I find, that two pastors are now going to talk about the Bible, which we haven't done yet.
We have not done that yet, correct. So hopefully you may learn something new today, or we may just enhance what you've already known. So as a basic initial overview,
This is a Bible.
this is mine.
This is mine.
Whoops, slightly used. As I drop all my papers, which is fine. So as an overview, very basic. We all know that the Bible has two sections. We have the Old Testament and we have the New Testament. The Old Testament has 39 books in it, and the Old Testament has 27, which, if you do math real quickly, comes up to 66 books.
Right.
So, each of these sections are broken down. In the Old Testament, and not even just broken down, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and all of the rest of the books, they have different sections and different names. So today, now let's hope that my spelling is correct.
Just use Torah.
Oh, no, I'm not using the easy word.
Oh, okay.
I will use both.
All right.
So those of you who may have a background in Latin will notice that we have the Pentateuch, also known as the Torah in the Jewish religion. And that's the first 5 books of the Bible.
Right.
So we've got Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So we thought, let's just break them down just a little bit, and then we can go through what the other sections of the Bible are. So we have the book of Genesis. That is the first book. I would hope that most people who have been to church, gone to Sunday school, might even know the first words.
In the beginning.
Yes. And I did tell my Sunday school students, and this is old joke, and in fact, Russ, our big guy here, who has tells some dad jokes. But I told my Sunday school kids that, did you know the Bible talks about baseball? One of my 7-year-olds said, "Oh, what do you mean baseball in the Bible?" I said, "Yeah, in the beginning." Well, as
Oh, that is so bad.
it is bad. I think it's, yeah. So anyway, they start laughing because, kids think it's funny. But anyway, so we do start with Genesis, and we know that in Genesis we have the story of creation.
Yes.
And in that story, we have the Garden of Eden. We have Adam and Eve. We have Adam and Eve leaving the Garden of Eden. Because their eyes were opened, because they did not obey what God asked them to.
Well, that's part of the reason that they had to leave, but the other reason is that there were 2 trees in the Garden of Eden. Many people don't know that. The first tree that that Eve ate from is called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And once she had bitten into the apple, she realized she had done something wrong. But she gave it to Adam anyway because it tasted so good. And when he bit into it, they both realized they had done something wrong, and they were naked. So they clothed themselves with leaves. And when God walked into the garden, he saw them and knew immediately that they had disobeyed him, because he had told them not to eat of the trees. So he punished them, but in effect, he actually saved them from themselves. Because the second tree in the Garden of Eden is the tree of eternal life. And he knew that if he left them there, they disobeyed him once, that the temptation would be too much. So he kicks them out of the garden to save them from themselves. Now he does punish them, but in the end, the punishment was nowhere near as bad as what would have happened if they had eaten of the tree of eternal life in a state of shame and guilt forever.
Yeah. They were given a choice.
They were saved. There's a part of that story that's about salvation from God, from ourselves. Because we cannot save ourselves. In the end, we have to use God.
Exactly. And by making that choice to really disobey God, they would have been set up for so much worse than how we have it. Yeah, absolutely. But then we start to see some hope in Genesis. The all-time favorite story of every child I have ever met is Noah. It has to be the animals. Fun fact, yes, God took 2 of every creature. But if you read carefully, it is 7 of every clean animal and 2 of every unclean animal.
Well, my biggest bone of contention with that whole story is, why did he have to save the spiders? I don't like spiders. I know they have a purpose in this universe, in God's creation. But he could have left the cockroaches too.
Well, the mosquitoes come to mind.
Yes. All the little things that bug us.
Yes.
No pun intended.
Oh, that was good. that was good. So then we continue on.
Yeah.
And we get to the point where the book of Exodus starts to come into play.
Yeah.
And we hear of Abraham. And historically, physical, historical, archaeological evidence of Abraham. That's the very first time that we can historically go back and have scientific evidence of
He existed.
that he was there,
Right.
that this happened, which is phenomenal. It actually gives me a peace that, oh, okay, so this happened. This is true. This is how we should live. So Abraham, so his whole thing was helping everyone. He was considered the father of these covenants that were made with God. And then we move on to Moses. Did you have anything to say about Exodus before we keep going, or are we just...
The thing about Moses, well, Abraham being the first recorded human being that we can point to, but he had a contract with God. And God came to him and said, take everything you own and move over there, and I will make you a great nation. And he did. He did. I mean, that contract was 95% God, and all Abraham had to do was move. And as contracts go through the rest of the Bible, it starts to switch. The more of the contract is on our side, less on God's side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So his was the first contract.
The absolute first, yes. And then, as I just said, Moses comes into play and, leading the people through the promised land and away from Pharaoh. And again, I can think of 10 small promises, 10 small contracts.
Yeah.
That
My favorite story of Moses, though, is when God says, you must go down to Egypt and save your people. And he says, but I don't know how to speak. I'm not good enough to do this. And God says, don't worry, I'll send somebody with you as a mouthpiece, your brother. So he goes. Again, he just goes. He doesn't even have the confidence in himself that he can do this, but he goes. So the Old Testament is full of people who obey at God's wish when they don't really understand what they're going to do and how it's going to be done and what they're going to be a part of, but they are very obedient.
which is a good example for us even today. And I think what we try to do as pastors and ministers and is to get people to understand that what happened so long ago is still very relevant to us today. As I said, the 10 Commandments.
Yep.
And I love your take on the 10 Commandments.
I grew up hearing the 10 Commandments as thou shalt not, as if it was an angry parent. And being the rebellious soul that I was as a child, I said, I'm not going to worry about those. I'm going to do whatever I want. And of course I got older, and then I started studying. And I studied with one of the professors at my seminary, and he said, Donna, has it ever dawned on you that if you obey the first commandment, which is to love God, you will be so full of love that the others are promises. You won't want to cheat. You won't want to steal. You won't want to bear false witness against your neighbor, because you're going to be so full of God's love that you will not even think of doing these things. So then I got a little bit more interested in the 10 Commandments as promises rather than as these, parental rules.
Right.
It made it more palatable to me.
Well, and that makes sense. I mean, we don't like to always be told, don't do this, don't do that, because what are we going to do? Our nature is,
As children,
is children,
is
is
to
to
rebel.
rebel against it and to,
get away with as much as we can.
well, yeah, I mean, and as adults we do that too, at times. But yeah, we need to do that. But we're going to take a break real quick and be right back.
Hey, check it out. Huh. What happened to that guy?
You're not alone. Together we stand. I'll be by your side. You know I'll take your hand. When it gets cold and it feels like the end, there's no place to go. You know I won't give in. No, I won't give in. Cause you know I'll make it through, I'll make it through. Keep holding on.
Where's Tommy? I thought he was with you.
No.
Jack.
Tommy?
Go get him.
Don't stop. Keep playing. Here we go. Here's the fun part.
Did you do this?
Great job.
Encouragement. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Welcome back. We are going to continue our discussion now. We left off with the book of Exodus and talking about Abraham and Moses. And I think that we're good to move on to the book of Leviticus, which is the third. And in the book of Leviticus are a lot of rules,
Yes.
laws.
Yes, many people just don't read the book of Leviticus because, well, to be perfectly honest, it can get pretty boring.
True.
But there's a reason for those rules because God is really trying to tell us how to live a holy life. And it has to do with food. It has to do with laws about how you treat each other. It has to do with some things that, if you are an observant Jew, they're very important to maintain for a holy life.
Absolutely.
As Christians, we've moved away from some of them, but if you really study them, they're actually quite appropriate to being very religious, very observant, and very holy.
Absolutely. Not to get off topic, but a lot of times, you know, we say how negative and how bad social media can be. However, there's a social media platform that I watch quite frequently, and I follow 2 Jewish women, and they just talk about their life. They don't, you know, say anything condemning about any other religion. They're just saying, this is what I do. And one of their husbands, they do a question and answer situation, which is phenomenal because I'm learning so much more about the Jewish culture and faith. It's really been such a good thing. You know, there are, and I learned this from them, 617, I believe, laws that they follow.
Yes.
And I know in my head, okay, so Christianity, I've got 10. And sometimes those 10 can be a little rough, but 617. And I saw the other day that, you know, they were saying that when it comes to a holiday, Yom Kippur was just last week, I believe.
Holiest day of the year.
Yep. And they said they actually do review the laws for that specific holiday because there are just so many to remember. And, you know, that is living your faith.
Yes, it is.
And it just is amazing. It really is.
In some way, I'm almost envious because they have a physical manifestation of their faith. And I think a lot of times with people that I've known, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I believe." Yeah, show me how you believe. You know, in other words, how do you live your life? And they kind of look at me like, "What do you mean? How do I live my life? I mean, I just believe." But apparently they've divorced that belief from how they're actually functioning in the world. And I think in some sense that the Jewish faith has, you know, they have a lot of rules, but boy, if they follow those rules, they've got a holy life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, I went to college at a well, Eastern Nazarene College, which now is closed, but there were so many different faiths there that I could see how people lived differently. Very eye-opening. But I think back to people who may be in the thought of, well, I'm saved, I've given my life to Christ, and then what?
Now I can do anything I want.
And then what? There's a whole component of living that way,
Right.
and looking through Leviticus, seeing this type of offering and this offering and this offering, and all of these rules they're going through, and they did it back then.
Mm-hmm.
There are people doing it today.
Right. Right.
And it's just amazing how
Mm-hmm.
this book,
Mm-hmm.
just as a book,
It is the best seller in the world.
every
Always
year,
has been.
all time.
Always has been. Right.
Absolutely.
So there must be something in it that people like and need.
There's got to be something. This is one of my many Bibles, well used. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and as a parent, those were things that I tried to instill in my children.
Yep.
And all children. I've taught Sunday school too.
I have to refer, however, to a family that I watched on television. They were talking about these, I think there were 3 or 4 sisters, Jewish sisters, and they were coming up on a high holiday, and they had to go to a particular butcher
Mhm.
to make sure that all of the cuts were done correctly, and they kept telling the butcher how to cut the meat. Now, he was Jewish, and then they got home, they tried to put together the meat grinder on the kitchen table. It took 4 people to try to reassemble this meat grinder, and they finally gave up and had one of the guys come in and do it.
That's
It was
funny.
so cute. They were so
Aw.
funny. They were laughing at themselves.
At themselves,
you know.
right. Which that's a fantastic thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what can you tell me about the book of Numbers?
Well, the book of Numbers is a lot of walking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And one of my favorite stories about the book of Numbers is that Moses leads people out of Egypt.
Yep.
For 40 years, they wander in the desert.
It's a long time.
Now, I've never been in a desert, but my understanding of watching television or talking to people who have been there is it's pretty dry. And there's a lot of wind, and it can be uncomfortable. Now, imagine all of the Israelites marching across the desert for 40 years. And one of the things that they did was they said to Moses, "What are we doing here? What is going on? We were okay in Egypt. We had food and a place to sleep." And the word in my Bible is they were murmuring. I think that's a polite way of saying they were kvetching. They were griping.
A little bit.
And Moses goes to say to God, "What should I do?" And he says, in essence, to paraphrase, God didn't say this, but tell him to stop. Tell him to shut up.
Relax.
You know, I am providing you with what you need, which was the manna from heaven.
Yes.
And there was just enough for everyone. And the people who were greedy tried to keep some extra, and by the next morning it had gone bad and they couldn't eat it. And they didn't believe that God would provide them with what they needed.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
as they wandered and they grumbled and griped, they got closer and closer to the promised land.
Exactly. Again, just doing what God's asking you to do.
Mhm.
Hello.
But think about how many times we
Yeah.
and moan and groan
Yeah.
about something happening in our lives, and we don't realize that a better outcome is coming
Right.
from what we're
Absolutely.
going through. And
Yeah.
that's what I get out of Leviticus. We just have to persevere.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So now we've got the last book, Deuteronomy,
Yep.
in this Pentateuch, these first 5 books. Again, very important in the Jewish religion and culture. So we're at Deuteronomy. Fill me in.
Deuteronomy is about how to worship,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also about obedience. It's basically, doing what God tells you to do. What's good for us.
Hasn't that been the same since Genesis?
You noticed.
I did.
Yeah.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. The whole book is about that. It's all about our salvation by
is.
obeying what God proposes and disposes.
Absolutely.
And when our
Absolutely.
egos or our pride or our sense of, I'm so wonderful, get in there,
Yeah.
my constant is, I've told you this before, Jesus is standing at 10 o'clock, about 20 feet away from me going, this way, over here. And when I go over there, it goes wrong.
Yeah.
Doesn't work well.
No.
And then I have to come back and say, okay, I'm going to 10 o'clock because that's the way it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
But that's the whole book.
Yeah. Yeah. And once we realize that that's the way to go, just this past week, I have been praying over a situation and a direction I'm supposed to go in. So what do? I'm like, hey, can I have a sign? Like anything at all, something clear, something I'm going to know. Well, then I have to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I got my answer.
Yep.
And it was clear as day.
Mm-hmm.
So when we follow and we obey
Mm-hmm.
and we can ask, and that's we'll get into that, but
Mhm.
yeah, these first 5 books are a good base,
Mm-hmm.
a good base to start, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
to learn from, realize that there is an entire culture.
Yep.
So I hope that we have given some base today and that we can continue on with this.
To go back to the covenant that Abraham made with God, Moses makes a covenant with God.
Yes.
And that's the end of Deuteronomy because he sees the promised land, but he can't get in. And there's a reason why. So I'll leave that as a teaser for next time.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us today on this episode, and we will continue this. So hopefully you'll be able to join us. Have a wonderful week, and
Yes,
until we
blessings.
see you again.
Yes.